Welcome, everybody. I'll convene our board meeting for Thursday, October 7th. The board met in closed session, and I apologize for being a half hour past due here. We had a closed session to discuss appointment of executive officer, and at this point I have nothing further to report from that. So we'll go on to our regular meeting, and if it pleases the board, I'd like to actually move item number 17 up to right now. And I'll kick off a couple of announcements and then just to invite my colleagues to chime in if there are any board member or staff matters. So the first couple I would like to ask for is tonight I would like to request that the board authorize us to adjourn in memory of Mr. Lawrence Leo Lucchetti, who's the father of our advisor, Peter Lucchetti. And he was a resident of Greenbrae most recently, and lived a long and fruitful life with his family here in Marin, served in the Marine Corps, and will be sorely missed by the family. And so if it's okay, I'd like to request a motion to approve that urgency and item. Any opposition to that? Great. So what I'll ask staff to do is just pen a quick letter to Peter indicating that we'll be adjourning today's meeting in his memory.
Okay, thank you very much.
And then secondly, I'd like to request that we adjourn tonight's meeting in memory of the father of Jordis Weaver, Ralph Gunter Witter, who passed away recently, and we offer our condolences to Jordis for that too. Can I get a motion in this?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any opposition to that? Good, so we'll adjourn tonight's meeting in memory of those two individuals. On a bit lighter note, I just wanted to share something that has, and I suspect Don will mention this issue during the executive's report, but I wanted to mention that I got my PG&E bill recently, and sure enough, it still turns out to be pretty confusing. When you look at the electric account detail, it still looks like I'm getting charged the full bundled rates of 11.8 cents a kilowatt hour, 13.5, and so forth. But the thing I wanted to say on the record right here at the beginning of the meeting, I'm not being charged that much. If you do the math and you check it against the actual total electric charge for the PG&E side of the bill, it actually turns out to be correct. So the $52.09 I got charged, total charges from PG&E, is exactly right. They charge a different rate than the one that they show on the breakout of this bill. So unfortunately, the bills are confusing, and a lot of people have been calling in thinking that they're getting billed too much because they looked at these bundled rates per kilowatt hour and don't then crunch the numbers and find out that that would result in a much larger number than the number I'm actually being charged. Interestingly enough, so I got charged $52.09 by PG&E for the transmission and distribution charges, and I'm a Deep Green customer for MEA, and my MEA charges, which is the generation side, including my Deep Green premium, because I'm a phase 2, it was only $40. So I'm pretty happy with that outcome in terms of being a customer of Marin Clean Energy at this point. As a Deep Green, I'm actually, as we predicted, paying a little bit less than a quarter of my overall bill is the generation side, just as we explained to people for years in the run-up to launching phase 1. So far so good on my bill. I know there have been some glitches and technical problems, which I bet our director will get to, but if you do get any calls or concerns from your neighbors about this, you actually can work your way through these bills, and I'd encourage you to refer them forward to Jamie or Don or Beth. They can take them through quickly, but I'm slowly getting myself oriented well enough to answer these questions as well, and it's working out well. So there's that update. Any other board members with announcements?
On a request.
Please.
And probably an announcement, just to let my colleagues know that I will be going to Washington, D.C. At a request from Galvin Electricity Initiative to speak at the National Grid Week Conference. It's 1,400 people. And the panel that I'm speaking on is about community-based power and new models. And so, of course, I'll be talking about what we're doing here at MEA and all of the innovative things that we're up to. So I think it's a great opportunity for exposure for CCA and for the agency. So I'll be doing that in about 10 days. The request I have, Chair, is, so tell me if it's appropriate. I have to leave at 10 o'clock tonight because I have a babysitter who goes to school in the morning. And so I'm wondering if it would be possible to shift items 8 through 14, all of which are significant action items tonight, and then defer the marketing, perhaps the marketing, the technical committee update, and the regulatory update, since those are discussion items. Just shift those.
Good, so we'll move items 8 through 13 up.
14.
8 through 14. I better mark that.
After item 4, I guess, or whatever you prefer.
Sure. Is that okay with the board? So
I
we'll
would
go,
appreciate it.
and then hopefully we'll get to item 4 so you can vote on the, actually, let's take it after item 4. I want to get your vote on the Prop 23.
It would go after
we'll
4, before 5.
Good. So for members of the public, if you're tracking, we'll do items 1 through 4, and then we'll go to 8 through 14, and then come back to item 5.
Sorry about that, everybody, and I appreciate it.
Great.
It's part of the group.
Any other directors this way with announcements? Director Kyle?
I should just mention I'll be presenting to the Berkeley City Council on October 19th, giving an update on MEA.
Lots of recruiting going on.
Very good. Okay, any staff matters aside from the stuff that you do in your director's report on? Great. Okay, then our first item up will be public open time. Any members of the public wanting to speak to us about an item not on tonight's agenda? Welcome.
Thank you. I am Richard Cohen. I live in Belmarie Keys, which is near but not inside the city limits of Novato. And I have a happy announcement to make in that I have just gotten a large solar array put on my roof. And with no unusual delay whatsoever, PG&E just came around and hooked me up to the network, to their grid. And I think that I'm the first net metering customer that is also a deep green customer
All right.
for MCE. And everything just kind of works. I was amazed. I expected every conceivable form of red tape and rejection. And I think that they're just as badly organized for stopping something as they are for making something happen sometimes. So anyway, I'm looking forward to a long and happy relationship. We've got, let's see, I'm putting out about 4 kilowatts into the grid or into my household stuff, depending on what's going on. And it all seems to work quite well and we have no problems. So I think there are a lot more opportunities to be done, especially in places in Nevada where the houses are relatively widely spaced out and shadowing problems and things like that are minimal. And I don't want to add, but my contractor was Sunjevity, and I think they did a very good job. They really have good back office.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hi, good evening. I think I met some of you at the executive committee meeting a couple of weeks ago, and I'm representing local power here tonight just to lay out some of our past and our present concerns. A local power bid for phase 1 procurement. Our bid was not considered, and we were not given an explanation as to why it would not be considered for phase 1. And this was a bid for 76% relocalization of energy here in Marin County. It was 100 megawatts, over 100 megawatts. And we were told, as a reply, that this bid would become part of phase 2, and that would begin, as we were told, in writing, in June of 2010. Now it is October, and it was indicated to me by the interim director and the chairman at that meeting that there would be a new RFP that is going to be considered or come out here in November. which would change the conditions for our bid and would strand our expense, which was considerable, at this first bid. And so the sum of these actions appears to be a lack of consideration for the bid that we made to the Marin Energy Authority. And I just want to register publicly now our shock and dismay that this has happened, and this is the course that the board has chosen to take. That's what I'm saying. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Gene Dyer, Santa Fe. I'm pleased to see that you have your financials things on the agenda and especially your audit. There's one additional type of audit I think you ought to consider. And that is your contract with Shell provides that they provide certain kinds of energy. Of course, it all gets mixed up, and so the only proof you have is the certificates or whatever other documentation is made available from time to time. I would think you would want to have an audit of their performance in providing the correct types of power.
Thank you. Welcome, Barbara.
Good evening. I just wanted to give you a bit of an update on the Energy Efficiency and CCA workshop that happened. I don't know if that's going to be on the agenda or not. It is on the agenda, so should I wait until then?
Yeah, let's do it then.
Okay, fine.
Good.
Item 7.
Anyone else for open time? Okay, we'll move then to item number 2, our director's report.
Thanks. I have a couple of items this evening. The first is just wanted to let our board members know that we have business cards up there at the dais for you. Let us know if there are any changes that need to be made to the information on the business cards, and hopefully they, for the most part, are all ready to go. So feel free to use those. They do have our office contact information for phone calls, so that you're able to direct people to us. But you can give those out as you wish for customers that have questions or constituents in your communities. The next thing is, I just wanted to call your attention to a letter that was mailed to us by Senator Mark Leno a few weeks ago, just congratulating us on our recognition by the EPA for our production of renewable energy and being named to the EPA's top 20 list as one of the nation's top producers of renewable energy. So just wanted you all to know that we received that recognition. And then the next item I wanted to report on is what's alluded to here on the screen. Since we haven't had a regular meeting since our Renewable Portfolio Standard report went in, and so I just wanted to give an update on where we are with our renewable compliance. The Renewable Portfolio Standard program requires a compliance filing on March 1st and August 1st of each year. The August 1st report states historic performance in the RPS program, current year targets and procurement data, and forecast targets, as well as procurement levels for each year forward through 2020. 18 load-serving entities submitted their mid-year compliance reports on this date, as did we. And so we worked up a comparative analysis. Corby Dussel actually helped a lot with putting this data together. And this shows that we are actually exceeding the RPS mandate, which is currently 20%. We are at 26.5%, and we are ahead of a lot of the other utilities, as you can see by this slide here. This next slide gives a breakdown of where some of the key jurisdictions are, or the key providers are, as far as their compliance with the RPS, and where they're projected to be in comparison to what the RPS is requiring. Based on our reported procurement plans, we're projecting that we'll exceed the renewable procurement efforts of PG&E, Southern California Edison, and San Diego Gas and Electric by 51.4% and 36.3% and 99.2% respectively. So I think that's good news, and I just wanted to share that with the board.
John, while we're on the subject, one of our public speakers asked, how do we verify the constituent energy procurement? Can you just address that since you're on the topic?
Yeah, I think Kirby.
Yeah, sure. As a matter of fact, there's an online system. It's called the Western Renewable Energy Generation Information System, or REGIS. as it's nicknamed. And we have an account, Marin has an account that's registered with Regis, and each month Shell transfers title to all of the renewable energy that's procured by MEA to our account. And so we've been in the process now for, well, since we've been operating, of receiving those transfers, verifying their eligibility to meet the California standard, and tracking those relative to the invoices that we receive from Shell, and monitoring performance related there too. So we have an account that's full of renewable energy certificates, which represent the title of the renewable energy that MEA has purchased on behalf of its customers.
Great, thank you.
Next item I wanted to report on, just so the board is aware, is that Sempra Energy Solutions, who's been serving as our data manager, has been acquired by Noble Powers Group. I just wanted to say a little bit about Noble Group, and also let the board know that it's not going to have any impact on our contract with Sempra Energy Solutions. I think one of the things that was discussed prior to the acquisition was our program, and I think it was seen as a benefit and something that Sempra Energy Solutions is looking to expand upon in the future. Noble is a leading participant in the U.S. power business commodities market, and they are engaged with agricultural, energy, metals, and mining resources. So we have more information. If the board is interested, we can send out the press release that went around on that. The next item I wanted to report on is some of the PG&E and billing issues that we've been running into over the last couple of months. The good news is that the issues are becoming more, they're impacting smaller groups of customers, and they are not as widespread as they were at the beginning, but we are continuing to see some technical and operational difficulties in the billing interface. One is, which Director McGlashan alluded to already, is that the factors shown on the bill are still the bundled rates. Now, this issue is very close to being resolved. Probably of all the ones I'm going to talk about tonight, it's the closest to being resolved. Just about, actually. There's one other that's ahead of it. But the what PG&E is planning to do starting next month is they'll begin masking the breakdown by tier that shows that bundled rate. So they will no longer show that on the CCA customer bill. Instead, they will put a footnote in the space kind of below that that explains what the average rate would be for an average customer, and refer people to our call center and their call center if they have questions about what their rate is. The benefit in this change is that it will no longer have a wrong number on the bill. So when customers are trying to do the math, they will not be coming up with the wrong number and wondering why we're telling them that it's actually not supposed to be that way. And I think this is not a perfect solution, obviously, because it doesn't show the right number. So at least it's a temporary solution, and there's still discussions going on about how to get the correct number to show up. One of the difficulties that PG&E is putting forward is that it's very difficult to make changes to a small subset of customers when a lot of the things that show up on the bill are set up in their system to happen system-wide. And they just really aren't set up to serve CCA customers. So that's creating a bit of trouble, but it's good that we're working on it now so that it can be something that's worked out for us in phase 2 and for other CCAs that follow behind us. The next issue I wanted to report on is the issue of customers who are on the balanced payment plan. Now, this was another problem that we ran into once customers were transitioned to PG&E, to MEA service. What was happening is customers on a balanced payment plan, they get a monthly charge that's equaled out throughout a year based on what their average charges are. PG&E was unable to decouple the charges and take the generation piece out of the bundled charge. So what happened in effect is that customers were being charged double for generation for the first few months of service. This was obviously credited on their bill, and it was, those charges have now been reversed. And by the end of August, the issue was completely resolved so that it's no longer happening to customers, and the PG&E has been able to disaggregate the charge so that customers are no longer being double charged. But I just wanted to let the board and the public know about that issue in case it comes to your attention that there's a balance payment plan customer who has a question about their bill, and you'll know that was an issue at the very beginning of service, and fortunately that issue has now been resolved and won't be an issue when we launch phase 2. The next issue I wanted to mention is that a couple of weeks ago there was a day of charges. It was the customers that were billed whose charges were sent over from Sempra Energy Solutions to PG&E on September 22nd. The transfer of charges went through to PG&E twice on that day. This is something that sometimes happens with utilities transferring data back and forth, and there's been a bit of an issue with the transfer of data because PG&E doesn't always register when they receive the data, and so sometimes it's hard for Sempra to know whether the charges have gone through or not. That's partly what led to this issue, but the result was that customers who happened to be having their charges sent over on that day may be receiving a double charge on their bill for generation. Now, PG&E is working to reverse those charges for a subset of those customers. We believe it's going to affect approximately 320 of our overall customer base. And we have developed a letter that will be going out to customers to let them know exactly what amount they got overcharged. We do have that information in our system, and letting them know that they do not have to pay that amount. They can deduct that from their bill. Alternatively, they can simply wait till their next billing and it will be deducted at that time. So if you have any customer or any constituents or community members with questions, you can always direct them to Jamie or our call center, and we can identify if the customer falls into any of these classes of customers. We have some pretty good data, and we should be able to explain anything to customers that way. And then the last thing I wanted to report on that relates to PG&E and billing issues is we have not had any forward motion yet on getting the clarification made on the bill that shows which charges are generation and which charges are non-generation. So what happens on the bill now, as you may have noticed if you looked at your bill, is that it'll say electric charges and it'll list the PG&E charges, and then a little further down it says electric charges, Marin Energy Authority, and they're two different amounts. This can lead a customer to believe that they're being double charged for electricity. So our request to the utility, actually back in May, was they include the term generation for our charges and the term non-generation for their electric charges. Unfortunately, this change has not been made yet, and we have learned that PG&E is going to implement a freeze on their bill, any bill changes beginning in November and going through February. So we've now engaged the CPUC and the City and County of San Francisco to address this issue before November so that it will be resolved before that bill freeze, since it's been outstanding for 6 months.
Why did they get away with the bill freeze? Because they're getting ready to increase their rates.
The bill freeze is actually related to a technical upgrade that they're doing on their system. Yeah. And so I'm going to pause to see if there are any questions before I move on. Yeah? Okay. The next item I wanted to report on is we've been working with PG&E representatives to hold a follow-up meeting with a subset of our technical committee on smart meters, and we've had a couple of meetings get canceled or postponed. There were some issues related to the San Bruno incident that may have caused a delay there, and we're working very hard to get that meeting on the books, and we'll let the directors know they're going to be part of that meeting as soon as we can schedule it. We're working very hard to get that on the books. The next item I wanted to report on is kind of exciting. We have been, as we discussed in our board retreat in late April, we've been looking at projects that might be a good fit for MEA, kind of on a parallel track with the RFP process. And we have identified, we've looked at a couple of projects closely and identified one that appears to be a really good fit for MEA as far as timing, cost, renewable generation capacity, and that sort of thing. So we are convening a meeting of our ad hoc contracts committee, which was engaged before working on our power supply contract earlier this year. And we're excited to be able to look at this project with the input of the committee and see if it's something that we want to add into our portfolio. It may be something that would come online right around the time when we launch phase 2. So we'll be looking at that. It certainly wouldn't be taking up a big share of phase 2, but it would be a small percentage that would be something that could come kind of in addition to the power supply contract that we have in place with Shell Energy North America, and kind of be a supplement to that. And then the next thing I wanted to report on is we've had some discussions with a smart grid kind of pioneering group called Infotility that's been doing a lot of demonstration work at the County of Marin, throughout the County of Marin. And we spoke to them about some opportunities for launching projects via some of MEA's work and infrastructure that would be useful to them as far as kind of modeling and testing out some of their systems, but also useful to us as far as looking at things that might be a benefit to customers. One of the things that seemed to be a good overlapping interest is the idea of using the syndicated solar program or solar shares program installation that we'd be looking to do somewhere in Marin County, and putting some of their monitoring software on the system, and that would enable customers to actually see in real time how much energy is being generated by their share of the system. And that seemed pretty exciting to us. It's something that they have a grant to do through the Department of Energy, and we think it would be really compelling for customers to be able to get that kind of up-to-the-minute information. So we'll be exploring that further as that program moves along. We also discussed demand response programs that MEA might be offering in the future, and the idea of using some of their software products to enable that type of program and add value to that type of program. So I'll be able to report more on that in the next few months as we develop those ideas a little further. A couple of other quick items. I wanted to let the board know that the City of Arcata has expressed a unanimous interest in joining the Marin Energy Authority. Their council is very interested in having their community have access to our power. They're not as interested necessarily in sitting on the board. They just want the power to flow to their community. Yes, it's part of Humboldt County. So we are we're evaluating their demographics and load information, and we'll be having some conversations with them, and obviously discussing this in more depth in our committees and ultimately at our board if it continues to progress. The next item I wanted to mention is that we've been working through our communications team and Jamie to plan the idea of doing Deep Green customer recognitions here at our board meetings. We have a number of business customers that have chosen to be Deep Green customers, and we thought it might be good for them to provide a little recognition, give them a certificate to hang up, give them a logo to put up. And obviously I stole this idea from our green business program at the county where we do that sort of thing, but it's a really feel-good program. The businesses really like it, and I think it helps spread the word about our program. It's also something that we could put in the certificate, what's the CO2 reduction that this business is causing by their participation in Deep Green, and customers that walk in will see that. So those are some ideas that Jamie's been working on, and we'll be bringing that to the executive committee at our next executive committee meeting. I wanted to just give a very quick PACE update because that's obviously been something that we've been following. The Natural Resources Defense Council filed suit with the feds yesterday actually to reinstate PACE programs. There hasn't been any resolution of the issue, but we're continuing to follow it. And I'm almost done. The next thing I wanted to mention is that TAM is working to help with electric vehicle charging in Marin County, and they've reserved over $2 million the Metropolitan Transit Commission has reserved over $2 million for charging station implementation, and Marin will be a beneficiary of some of that. This relates a little bit to an item we have later on down on the agenda. In addition to that, the TAM board has adopted an expenditure plan for increasing the vehicle registration fee by $10 that includes funding for electric vehicle charging stations. This is a countywide measure, it's Measure B, and it's going to be on the ballot November 2nd. And the last item is, I just wanted to say a few words about the audit, which is on the consent calendar, but just wanted to highlight a couple of things since this isn't on the policy agenda. First of all, the audit was due and completed on September 30th on schedule. It's available in your packet for review. It has information about our first two fiscal periods. The first fiscal period was kind of a half fiscal period, and our second fiscal period ended in March of 2010. So all of the activity shown in the audit is really startup activity. It doesn't show anything that happened since we began serving customers. So I just wanted to clarify that. But there's a lot of detail there, so I encourage you all to look at that closely. In addition, we thought it might be helpful to provide a little context about what's happened since then, because there actually has been a lot of budget changes and a very careful tracking since that time. So a couple of highlights subsequent to the period that ended on March 31st, and we began serving our first phase of customers. MEA saw an increase of net income of $696,000, a little over that. We anticipate further net income increases as our reserves continue to be built and our loans continue to be paid down by revenue from our operations. Also, we've noticed that there's continued to be significantly lower than projected expenses due to fiscal conservatism. We've actually saved $344,000 in professional services. We're actually 35% lower than projected. We've also seen a savings of $304,000 in staffing costs, which is 68% lower than projected. And our total savings over all expense categories has been $662,400, which is 45% lower than projected. Also, I think it's worth noting that we've begun making principal payments based on what was agreed to in our loan agreements. We began these principal payments in September. We paid principal in the amount of $146,000, actually $146,900, which is over $5,000 more in principal than scheduled. So we think that's good news. And then MEA will continue to pay approximately $145,000 in principal each month for the remainder of the fiscal year. And Beth, I think, had a couple of things to add on the audit.
Sure, I think that it relates more, the audit pretty much speaks for itself. It's a fairly simple document. It just reflects exactly that, our startup costs, and doesn't reflect any of the period since we've started operations. But just a commentary on our sort of financial statements to date. We have unaudited monthly financials that I look at each month, and each month has seen a progressively bigger number for our net income. So this is our gains over time, and that also includes sort of our repayment of principal. So our first month of principal repayment was, our first main month of principal repayment was actually this month. And so we'll be paying about $145,000 each month there and continuing to make gains otherwise.
Beth, can you remind us who we are repaying?
Right, well, our loans that the principal repayment is for is with River City Bank, and we have two guarantees in place for those loans. One guarantee is with the County of Marin, and so that loan is being repaid. So that guarantee will be released when that loan is completely repaid. And then there's a second guarantee from the Town of Fairfax. And again, that guarantee will be released as we complete those loans.
And what's the scoop on repaying the original county loan and the Citizens?
Yeah, that's still part of the plan. That so we have 3 outstanding promissory notes that the terms are interest only and then a balloon payment at the end. And then we further have 2 loans from the County of Marin, and those are also scheduled for repayment. That repayment will likely occur as we refinance as we look forward to phase 2.
And those interest payments have been happening on
Yeah.
schedules to the individuals.
Yeah, all of our payments are, you know, been late on a payment, so.
I have nothing further.
Sure, directors, Director Marshall.
Dawn, just a more of a, maybe a commentary on your item about the city of Arcata, which I think is just fantastic news. One thing just to keep in mind, which I'm sure you're fully cognizant of, is that whatever agreement we might make with City of Arcata or any other city, it's precedent setting in terms of the structure of that agreement. So we'll want to be very conscious about how we want to treat all of our different partners, whether it's now or in the future. So,
Excellent point.
and the issue about board representation, I know is a big one. So,
Yeah.
but that's awesome news.
Yeah, I'm sure there will be a
Super
lot of dialogue among our board before anything moves forward, but that's one of the things we'll need to pay close attention to.
Yeah. Great, thank you.
I'd always fantasized of acquiring Petaluma, but I had no idea of going all the way up to Arcata. But we're gonna land north and march south there. So they're almost as groovy as Fairfax, but I'm like, that's cool. Kindred spirits. Other director Cromwell.
Dawn, a quick issue in regard to smart meters, which isn't a topic of discussion or lengthy discussion tonight, but just an informational item for me. Obviously, it's been a cause of great concern around the county for the past 6 weeks or 2 months, and a call for a moratorium on part of several councils. PG&E, to their credit, I guess, has organized some informational meetings around the county, which I have yet to be able to attend one, which I would like to do. Have we got any feedback from people who have gone to those? Does this help them understand smart meters, and has it helped them in improving their efficiencies around their homes, as has been advertised?
Yeah, I've gotten a little bit of feedback from the community on that. I think the folks who have been to a session that I've heard from did feel like it was helpful and that they learned from it. I think that the tools that are available online for customers to monitor their usage are helpful, but they aren't as fine-tuned as customers would like to ultimately see. They're kind of based on day-by-day usage rather than hour-by-hour usage. So you can't really look at, where's the market right now, and should I reduce my usage right now. I think those are some of the benefits that we'll see down the road, and as we look towards developing some demand response programs, we'll be able to really leverage that kind of information once it's available. But I think that those information sessions have been helpful for the community to get a sense of what the potential benefits are, what the risks are, and at least some information about to what extent the risks have really been studied.
So there is some hope in the future that we will get beyond Chair McGlashan's issue of trying to sort out the PG&E bill and hopefully understand it a bit better.
Yeah, I think that's our goal.
It's supposed to be one line up.
Any other directors at this point for our executive? Okay, if not, then we'll go on to the consent calendar. And Dawn did provide some comments about our financial audit for fiscal 09 and fiscal 10. So I was originally tempted to pull that item, but I don't think we need to do that unless directors have any concerns about it. Okay, then if there's no worry about any of these individual items, can I get a motion for the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Any opposition? Good, that carries. Then we'll go on to item number 4, which is a proposed resolution opposing Prop 23. And
So
right.
moved.
Second.
Do we need to discuss it?
It is painfully obvious. I do want to make one edit, though, if the maker of the motion and the seconder will accommodate it. The county board took action on Tuesday to oppose it. So I'd love to add in the second whereas, when we list the various towns and cities in the county that have registered their opposition, I'd like to just add the county of Marin somewhere in that line before we send this. Just can add it right after San Rafael or whatever.
Moved as amended.
Seconded.
Good. Is there any public comment on the opposition to Proposition 23?
I actually bumped the stickers.
Oh, good, bring them up.
Cool. Please come to the mic.
I'm sorry.
It seems that the second whereas doesn't include the county of Marin as the first listed entity.
Oh, there it is. I missed it.
The second whereas is for, it lists the members of the Marin Energy Authority.
Oh, excuse me.
So we would
Oh
still
man,
do
I'm
that.
really
edit.
reading carefully. I apologize.
No.
So we weren't trying to itemize everybody who's opposing it.
No, your suggestion was correct, because in the whereas that you were referring to, the second to last, it lists Mill Valley, San Rafael, and Fairfax as jurisdictions who have opposed it. So if the county has as well, we can add it there.
Yeah, that's what, yeah, we wanted the county added there. Good. Good. Welcome, Megan.
Thank you. Can I add a last flip comment?
Please.
Thanks for approving that resolution. And I just wanted to mention there's a real bender of activity against 23 all weekend. The 23 headquarters at 4th and G in San Rafael partnered up with Organizing for America and the Marin Democratic Party. So anyone interested in any slate phone banking or 23 phone banking can just stop in just about any hour at 4th and G. Big push on Saturday and of course Sunday, the day of climate action. So thanks.
Actually, Megan just triggered a thought. On June 7th, about 50 of us did an hour of phone banking on Prop 16 into San Bernardino County and Orange County, believe it or not. And we got so many folks thanking us for calling because they just didn't know. And so people are there the night before the election trying to figure out what to do on all these things. So truth be told, if anybody is inspired and you do want to do some phone banking, people actually really benefit from hearing from a citizen, even from across California, just giving them some advice. I was amazed how nice people were. So anyway, for what that's worth, I would definitely encourage your friends and kids and other people to do a little phone banking. It's one of the most effective campaign things to do.
Get my kids on.
Yeah, it's good. Okay, let's see, if nothing else on that one, I'll call the question. Is there any opposition? Good, that passes unanimously. And let's see, the next item we'll do then is item number 8, which is an overview of our budget adjustments. And for the sake of understanding, what I wanted Beth to do was to give us the overview of a number of proposed adjustments to our budget that will affect cash flow. Board members, you'll notice that in this overview are a number of items we need to take action on later tonight. So the actual approval of this budget adjustment slate is item number 14. So item 14 will be changed, if at all appropriate, because we decide to reject any of items 9 through 13 or change them. So I wanted Beth to give us the overview that basically shows how we would account for all of these recommended project and policy actions in items 9 through 13. And then we'll circle back and just make the formal approval of this budget adjustment slate, assuming we like all these other ideas. So Beth, if you'll take us through, or Dawn, through item 8.
Great. I'm going to start it off, and Beth will chime in because she'll notice what I might have left out. Just by way of background, on March 25th, your board approved the MEA budget for the current fiscal year that we're in. On August 5th, your board approved modifications to the budget, mostly minor shifts from one line item to another. In some cases, we needed to create a new line item for something that hadn't been anticipated. And what we have tonight is actually a number of things that are administrative in nature. In some cases, they're related to a policy discussion that we're going to have, as Director McGlashan mentioned, a little further down on the agenda. So we just wanted to introduce them now, and we'll come back for approvals. The first item is the contributions item, and in this case, we are recommending the creation of a line item for the receipt of charitable contributions. This allocation would be increased, upon acceptance of donations, and it would begin with the current line item of $30,000. The staffing recommendation is to make a reduction of $10,500 to reflect lower than projected staffing costs to date. The next item is the Marin County CDA support. This is what the line item we were using to pay for staffing costs when we had staff still working through the Marin County Community Development Agency. At this point, that is no longer needed, so we're going to zero that line item out. The next item is related to technical consultants. We made an allocation in the earlier budget approval for approximately $60,000 to go towards technical consultant expenses on a monthly basis. Subject to the approval of items 11 and 12 related to our technical contracts, we would be able to recommend a reduction of $96,000 in the technical consultant line item to reflect reduced costs for technical consultants. And this would allow us, this would actually free up some dollars to cover some of the next items that we'll be talking about on the policy agenda. Item 5 is the data manager line item, and we're recommending an increase of $45,000 for the data manager. This is Sempra Energy Solutions, to reflect higher actual costs than previously projected. And I think it's worth mentioning here because staff is in close daily contact with our data manager. We are receiving excellent service from them, and I still can't understand how they keep their costs so low. So I keep waiting for the big bill to hit. I think that we are getting excellent service from them for very reasonable cost. So I think this is a reasonable increase here. Our executive search process is going to be discussed later on, but here there would be a recommendation to increase the allocation for this item by $37,000. This would be in addition to $20,000 that's already been allocated for that recruitment. And the next item is IT support. We're recommending the creation of a line item for IT support, just because that was not in the budget previously and needs to be added. We're looking for an overall total allocation of $10,000. That's not monthly, but that's overall. Data and telephone services also will need a line item. We haven't had that previously. Now that we're in our own offices, that's one of the things we need a line item for. We're looking at an allocation of $9,000 total for the remainder of the fiscal year. Dues and subscriptions, a slight increase there will allow us to participate in trade and community organizations. One example is the Santa Fe Chamber of Commerce, which we just joined last month. So that's what that item is for. The special events and sponsorships, I wanted to explain a little bit about this one. There was a request made for us to provide sponsorship to the Sausalito Film Festival, and MEA agreed to provide $500 toward this event. In addition, there were a number of individuals that provided donations and requested that they could provide the donations through MEA. Now, we've already received donations from these third parties in the amount of $1,750. So we would be adding that to the $5,000 coming from MEA, and then authorizing payment to the Sausalito Film Festival in the amount of $2,250. So that's what that item is regarding. And then in addition to that, our executive committee discussed this item on Monday, and there was a recommendation that we may want to actually put some additional funds into this special events and sponsorships line item in the event that we get requested or that we choose to do other sponsorships sometime between now and the end of the fiscal year. So the recommendation here is to add $2,500 to that line item. Under office supplies and postage, there's a recommendation that we increase in the budget $2,000 due to one-time startup costs. So this is not an ongoing cost, but more of a setup cost. The energy efficiency rebates item will be discussed in more depth later on, so we'll circle back to that one. The recommendation would be to create a budget line item for energy efficiency rebates in the amount of $10,000. And the installation of electric vehicle charging stations, we'll be discussing that in more depth, but the recommendation there would be to provide a line item for electric vehicle charging stations in the amount of $5,000. And then under capital outlay, there's a recommendation that we increase an increase of $20,000 to reflect our retention of donated office furniture from the Bank of Marin. So this, we have an item on our agenda later on to accept this donation from the Bank of Marin, and we just need our budget to reflect that. Then under principal, we have a recommendation to increase in the principal line item by $4,000, and this relates to the difference between the fixed amount to be swept to River City Bank each month, as laid out in our security agreement, and the fixed amount of the principal plus the variable amount of interest due to River City Bank each month. And so this is more of an accounting issue, and so that's the recommendation there. And the last is the addition of a line item for the office lease deposit. We need a place for that to live other than just miscellaneous. So we would be recommending a $5,000 allocation there. That's the amount of our current office lease deposit. And do you have anything to add there?
I'll just make a couple of quick notes, and one is just with regards to the staffing line item. This sort of relates to periods that have already passed where we were below budget, and it also just helps to, we try and just balance out our budget to zero each time. And so if the board chooses to not undertake certain items, then we can rebalance with some of these other available numbers. And then just a couple of a little bit more of making sense of the accounting is with regards to capital outlay. I think Don explained it well. It isn't actually an increase in capital outlay. We received a very generous donation, and so this is the accounting reflecting that donation. So, and then the last one is just for principal, just to clarify that it's not an increase in the amount of principal that we're requesting. Basically, we are paying down early our loans, and so the line item accounted really for what was laid out in our loan agreements, but the way that our principal, that our loan is being repaid is through the security agreement, which is a fixed number, which is a slightly higher number than what is the bank agreements. That's intended in the structure. So this reflects that.
Any questions?
Directors? If I may, I'll just quickly point out the third document in this little agenda item attachment shows the budget, and this is for our fiscal year ending March 31. And if you look down the right-hand column, that's basically what our business plan shows us to be doing. It's an incredibly useful little document. If you focus on the right-hand column, you can kind of see the scale of our business, the revenues we're making, the loan advances that we've received to date, and then the expenses that we have, cost of energy, 11 million on 16 million of revenue, and then the various other things we're spending money on. I think one of the biggest variables remaining right now is our budgeted amount for staffing of $1,064,000 as adjusted at this point tonight. That number is still larger than what we are likely going to be spending during this fiscal year. So that gives us some breathing room. Should we change staffing strategies or we need to do different marketing, things can be moved later. So I wanted to point that out. The other expense items, though, look pretty darn close to what the reality will show as we go forward. So as you scan down this piece of paper, you basically see all the stuff we're spending money on. One thing to note, toward the bottom right is the $1 million of bank loan principal that we're paying off by the end of March. We still have the payments to make on the Citizen loan and back to the county that'll happen probably next summer. And what's also impressive is the final deposit to reserve account of $350,000. That's actually really good news too, because that reduces, in a sense, the working capital revolver over time. And then at the end of the day, we end up with a net increase in our fund balance. In business parlance, that's like retained earnings of $2 million by the end of March. And this is a budget that's fairly well been checked based on our recent cash flow experiences. So I think there's a high level of confidence from staff that we'll hit these numbers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a pretty healthy business for the first year of operations. So that's good news. We pay off a lot of our debt. We still have $2 million in the bank at the end of the year, which is what staff had predicted before. So that's kind of the overview. If there are any other clarifying questions from board members, we don't need to take testimony on whether or not we ought to approve these things yet, but if are there members of the public who have questions or comments on this basic overview? Barbara?
Yeah, congratulations for having a successful launch. It's always feels good. I want to say though, things are going great now, but PG&E is still trying to kill us. You know, it's like, we shouldn't forget that. And we shouldn't forget that, you know, the money that we have, we've used really well so far, but let's not forget that it's been tight. I mean, we didn't have enough money to communicate with our first phase customers as much as we really needed to, and we're still looking for more money to communicate with our phase 2 customers. But we've got a ways to go. We've got a lot of things that we need to put money into. And I just want to caution the board and staff not to be, you know, too ebullient. It's like, hey, we got money. And it's like, we really do have to think about how to continue on the road that we were on. I mean, having being in the top 20 of the United States on the renewable portfolio standard is totally incredible. And there are, you know, next steps. I mean, we want to get even more renewables. That's going to cost more money. I think it's going to be quite a fight to get the energy efficiency money away from the utilities, but we have an opportunity to really do something unique and wonderful with energy efficiency and distinguish ourselves from the utility programs which are currently failing. So that's one of the things I just wanted to make sure, you know, we're thinking about, you know, the fact that there's Kiki's work. I mean, we've got a lot of communications left to do. We still haven't really started to talk to our Facebook 2 customers, and I can't wait for that.
Point taken. That's a good point. Yes, sir.
Just in brief support of Barbara's comments, I'd also note that you've got an outstanding promise to the IBEW with regard to generating local jobs. And the more you put into the MEA operational overhead, the less money you'll have for that. So do be careful. You're up to about 30% already of your electricity cost, and that's not a trivial number.
Thank you. That'll be vastly better when we get phase 2 done. Other comments or questions on this? Okay, let's move then to our energy efficiency rebate proposal. Dawn?
Great, so Jamie is going to introduce this item, and we're also going to hear from Dana Armadino with the County of Marin.
Great. And actually, I think we're going to start the item off with a presentation from Dana. And she is the contract and partnership manager for Marin County Energy Efficiency Programs and also sustainability planner for the County of Marin.
Welcome, Dana.
Oh, thank you. Good evening. I presented back in August to some of you, and I'll be going over some of that information again to bring you up to speed on our current energy efficiency programs and one that's just about to launch. And these programs are available to all Marin residents, all businesses and public agencies, including all of your customers. So we want to make sure that you guys are aware of those offerings and getting those out to your constituents. The County of Marin currently administers the Marin Energy Watch Partnership, which is one of 19 partnerships between local governments and PG&E throughout the region, and it's funded by all the California ratepayers under the direction of the California Public Utilities Commission. The current Energy Watch Partnership had its contract renewed in December 2009 and runs through 2012. The Marin Energy Management Team was the first CPUC-funded energy efficiency program in Marin, out of which the full partnership evolved. And the mission of the team is to provide resources and staff assistance to cities, towns, and special districts to identify energy savings opportunities and actually get those opportunities implemented where possible. A key aspect of the energy management team is our long-term relationship with these public agencies. In addition to our efforts to identify and capitalize on immediate energy savings like lighting retrofits and things like that, we also work with them to identify long-term opportunities like time of equipment changes that might not be cost effective at that moment to do, but when the time comes to replace that equipment, like a large chiller or boiler, we've already made the analysis, made some recommendations, and so when that time comes, we can step in and really assist them with making the energy efficiency choice, an energy efficient choice, get them funds to help with the process and move that process along. A prime example of that is the work we've done with the Marin Center Auditorium. They had their chiller was towards the end of its life. It was actually beyond the end of its life. We were able to make sure that the one they spec'd was an energy efficiency model, wrapped it in with a lighting efficient upgrade as well for the building, got them a low interest loan from the state, and the savings from that bundled project is actually going to help pay back the loan over time. Another area where we were able to exploit those long-term relationships with cities was when the ERA money for the block grants came up. We were able to assist the county and 5 of the small cities with their applications for those funds, something that they probably couldn't have done on their own. It was a pretty onerous process to do the application and continues to be challenging with the reporting and all of the requirements that the DOE and CEC has put on that. So by providing those staff resources to them, we've been able to get about $2.8 million in grants and loans for these agencies that they might not have gotten otherwise. And then a final thing that the team has been able to do is we've been able to couple our relationship with these entities with their desire to do renewable energy projects. And the team partnered with the Marin County Solar Program when an opportunity for IRS clean renewable energy bond financing came up for 0% interest loans for renewable energy projects. We were able to quickly respond to the solicitation, get applications in, and at this point, we had 10 public agencies representing cities, towns, schools, water districts, special districts, and fire districts actually bring the projects to fruition. So 21 installations will be completed when all is said and done, with 1.2 megawatts of solar installed. And one of those is actually having a ribbon cutting in a couple weeks, which is the Mill Valley Public Safety Building. So we're really pleased with that. On the commercial sector, the program is run by the Smart Lights program. It offers free start-to-finish technical assistance and instant rebates to help defray the costs of installing new energy-efficient equipment and also repairing existing equipment. Smart Lights helps businesses with comprehensive lighting retrofits, refrigeration tune-ups, and controls, and they also can replace domestic hot water heaters. They'll also refer businesses to HVAC services wherever possible. Since the program launched in January 2009, Smart Lights has completed over 530 installations throughout the county with total estimated energy savings of 3.9 million kilowatt hours a year. They've also provided local businesses with over $675,000 in direct incentives to help cover those costs. On the residential side, the partnership has the California Youth Energy Services Program, which trains local youth aged 15 to 22 to provide free green home house calls for residents throughout the county. At each home visit, the youth specialist perform an energy and water assessment, check the attic for proper installation, replace light bulbs or incandescent light bulbs with CFLs, and install other efficiency measures like shower heads and aerators and clotheslines. And then we'll actually provide the homeowner with a customized energy report that would direct them towards further savings opportunities. The CYES program also works closely with Smart Lights for our multifamily division or area where they Smart Lights can go in and work with the renters on their actual units, and then CYES can work with the renters on the units, and Smart Lights can work with the property owner on all of the exterior and common area lighting. The CYES program just ended its summer session, and they were able to visit over 180 homes. They, in the past, have been a summer-only program providing summer employment to youth, but they're going to try a new thing here in Marin, where they're going to provide year-round, after-school, and weekend jobs to students and be able to continue providing residents with services. We found that residents need help all the time, so we're going to try and keep it going year-round, see how that goes. And then finally, the one that is of most interest tonight is an upcoming residential program that's about to launch called Energy Upgrade California. Now, the county's participation in this program is not funded through the Energy Watch Partnership. This is a separate grant provided by the California Energy Commission. It's part of the ERA State Energy Program funding. It is a statewide effort, and the county itself is working with ABAG and 7 other Bay Area counties in implementing the local marketing, outreach, education, contractor development here in Marin. But the full statewide program is under the direction actually of both the CEC and the PUC. They're doing a very joint coordinated program where they're trying to help coordinate the utilities, the state agencies, all the local governments, and several private sector participants that are helping with the implementation. To maintain brand cohesiveness and provide a streamlined product to homeowners and minimize confusion, which was one of the complaints with a lot of the past programs. The CEC and the PUC have instructed all participants and local governments, the utilities, everyone, to use this Energy Upgrade California brand logo messaging. It's going to be a very, try and be very seamless in that respect. In the past, the homeowner would have to look here for a rebate, look there, and not know how to navigate the process, and they're really trying to remove those barriers through this program. The program will support homeowners, landlords, renters to make their homes more energy efficient through energy audits and retrofits. And this is a little bit different than CYES, where it's going to take it that next level up. It's not CFLs and shower heads and aerators. We're actually going to be, it's a whole home performance program where they're looking at duct sealing, HVAC control, insulation, full boilers and everything else. The aim is for participating property owners to achieve an average of 20% reduction in energy consumption of their homes. Homeowners will have a choice of upgrade packages and options that will qualify for rebates and incentives, including those things I mentioned like basic weatherization, insulation, sealing, and HVAC repairs. There will be, the main component of the program is a statewide web portal that will be customizable by each county to provide a one-stop resource of information on building upgrade benefits, financing and incentives, finding a qualified contractor, and then workforce development as well. It will be designed to allow a homeowner to visit the website, type in their zip code, and be taken to a Marin-specific website where there'll be information on what contractors are available in that area, what rebates are available, so it will be customizable. If we have local water district rebates or any other rebates that you all might provide, we'll be able to input it there so the homeowner can see it all in one seamless location. The other thing the web portal will allow is one application that the homeowner can fill out that will help them with the process of obtaining the rebates and also finding out what financing options are available for the project and be able to compare side by side what those financing options are. As they move through the process, they'll also be able to track the status of their rebates and anything else from that web portal. For the program rebates that will go along with the Energy Upgrade California, PG&E is participating at the direction of the California Public Utilities Commission. The Commission, in the development of the 2010-2012 energy efficiency cycle, instructed all the utilities to make $116 million of their budget available for this specific whole house rebate program, and instructed them to design the mechanism by which those rebates would be handed out. PG&E has just completed a pilot phase of the performance-based rebate program, and we just learned today that it's their website and the full rebate program will be hopefully going live this month. Renewable funding, which was originally working on the California First PACE program, so you all might be familiar with them. They've been hired by the state to develop that web portal program and the infrastructure that will go with it. They've also been hired to develop what's going to be called a financing clearinghouse as a fill-in for the lack of a PACE program yet. What they're going to do is go out to the national banks, local banks, and try and find financing products that would be able to help the homeowner implement these changes. They're hoping that the aggregated demand that would be associated with this statewide program would be more attractive to lenders, be able to get competitive interest rates. They also have funding available to help buy down those interest rates. The nice thing about this is it will be hopefully a competitive product or array of financing options that a homeowner can choose from. So we're renewable funding. So originally they were funded through the ERA funding to develop PACE for the California First counties. There was about 14 counties participating, but when the Freddie Mae Fannie Mac issue arose in July, they needed to adjust and worked with the CEC to identify an alternative strategy, which is this new financing clearinghouse. So we'll hopefully all benefit from that. The program was originally theoretically supposed to launch in early summer, but as a result of the delays with the CEC and the PUC really trying to bring everyone together and coordinate all these entities, we're now expecting a rollout very soon. As I said, the rebates are about to roll out. The web portal they expect to roll out in November or December. So the county will be continuing to work on this. We'll be continuing to work with MEA as much as possible, and I'm happy to answer any questions you all might have.
Thank you, Dana. Don, do you want to explain the budget request yet, or do you want us to focus on questions for Dana at this point about the overall program?
I'm going to let Jamie introduce that request.
Okay.
Okay, well then, I'll just move on to the staff recommendation. Right now, we're already promoting the Smart Lights and California Youth Energy Services programs that Dana spoke about, and staff believes that we could also promote the Energy Upgrade California program, and sees that program as an opportunity for MEA to actually start participating in some of the local energy efficiency programs that we have here in Marin. We could add value to this program by offering supplemental rebates in addition to the rebates that PG&E would be offering to Marin Clean Energy customers who participate in the California or Energy Upgrade California program. And the rebate could be used to offset the requirement that customers will have to get an audit on their homes to ensure that they'll have the 20% reduction in energy usage. So the rebate, if MEA decided to offer them, would be given to the customer after they had submitted proof that they had participated in the program and successfully reduced their energy consumption by 20%. So providing the additional rebate would provide increased incentives for Marin Clean Energy customers to increase energy efficiency in their homes, and also provide increased incentives for Marin customers to join Marin Clean Energy, because the rebate would be available just to our customers. And it would also promote energy efficiency as a whole and reduce greenhouse gas emissions in Marin, which is really leading us to implement one of the goals of this organization. So if the board chose to move forward with implementing this type of rebate, we would suggest that a $10,000 budget allocation be made to provide 20 rebates at $500 each to Marin Clean Energy customers who participate in the program.
Questions for Jamie about so the bottom line is that staff is requesting a $10,000 line item in the budget for these energy efficiency rebates to rebate to our customers for things that they're not otherwise eligible for under the California program. What's it called?
Energy Upgrade California.
Energy Upgrade California. So one of the problems is you can't get reimbursed for those energy audits in your homes, and they can run real money, $600 or something to get an audit. And so we would reimburse up to $500 for someone for that or other issues like that.
Yeah, additionally, most of the work that we get towards a 20% reduction would involve the necessity of getting a building permit, which would be an additional cost as well. So it could offset very real costs with the customer.
Great. So they would benefit from both types of rebates.
Director Thornton?
Yes, a question on this, because you said they would get the rebate after they've proven that they've reduced their energy consumption by 20%. So there'd be quite a long lead time theoretically on these?
For the PG&E based rebate, the 20% reduction is based on, it's called test in, test out, so there'll be a baseline testing on the advanced track rebate program. So there'd be baseline testing of what the whole system, the house as a system uses estimates on if you make these changes, what we believe the new systems would use. That delta would be, say, 20%. Then once everything is installed, they would actually go back in and retest the home to make sure. It's not a 20% reduction on your usage history, so you don't have to build up the usage again to demonstrate 20% reduction. It's more on a modeling-based savings.
Thank you.
Treasurer Marshall?
My question is really for Dawn, and that is that the request right now is for $10,000 to, I assume, just get us started and sort of test out this partnership. And then, assuming that it all works out, we would perhaps launch this in a broader way with additional funding. Is that the idea?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things that could come as the next step. The idea with this is, like you said, to get it started. Because we are contemplating offering rebates just to our customers, and because this program that we're talking about now, Energy Upgrade California, is targeting approximately 600 homes in Marin County, we expect that we might receive a request from up to 40 customers, could go higher, but we thought we'd start with what we think half of the demand would be. We'll see how that goes, and maybe within the next couple months we'd be coming back to the board with another request for an additional 10,000 if there's a demand and if the program seems to be going well and being well received. It could be possible to increase beyond that, although we don't anticipate that that would necessarily be the case. What's more likely is that we may find other programs that we want to contribute to or other ways that we want to help promote energy efficiency in the community.
Great, thank you.
Okay, if there are no more board questions, members of the public on this item?
Hi there. The energy efficiency, the workshop today that I was at all day, Dana was at also, was on this program, Whole House, Energy Upgrade California, also known as Whole House program that the utilities are running. It's, so the ERA State Energy Program funded, it's also IOU funded. The utilities are putting in about $111 million. There was one really nasty little item when they were talking about the allocation of credits for the energy that was saved in these programs. And we've been waiting to know what this was going to be since the decision came out last fall. And they announced today that the utilities will get 100% credit for dual funded programs. In other words, programs that are funded by the stimulus money as well as ratepayer funded programs. The utilities will get 100% credit. I said, why don't you give that 100% credit to the local governments? I mean, the utilities have been getting 100% credit for years. Local governments have gotten no credit whatsoever. And so this also means, of course, that this will enable the utilities to claim shareholders' incentives, profits on federal stimulus money, which just makes me want to gag. So this is, you know, an attempt by the Energy Commission and the CPUC to give homeowners and ultimately others an opportunity to have, you know, a one-stop shop for energy efficiency, because they acknowledge that there is potential for so much confusion, because you've got utility programs, you've got federal programs that are administered through the Energy Commission. Also, the Energy Commission is, ABAG is basically getting the money from the Energy Commission that it is administering in the local area. You've got local governments pulling in funding from their own federal stimulus money, as well as other local funds, as well as, you know, whatever they can find. I mean, PACE was originally supposed to be part of this, but obviously it's not, and so they're looking around for other sources of money. And I have to say, I'm excited about the fact that California is looking at a program that is not strictly under the utilities' thumb. This is spilling out all over the place. What worries me, though, is that there isn't anybody with a plan except really the utilities. I don't think the Energy Commission has the staff to really control things. I think it's going to be, you know, pretty much, you know, the utility programs, local governments have an opportunity to do a lot in these programs, But as I said, I think there is, potential for confusion, and that was one of the things that was discussed today.
Barbara, I need to have you wrap it up.
I will. The federal, there was a guy from the federal government who basically said, there's, this is a wonderful program in many ways, but it is monolithic, it is top down, and there's, diversity can be a good thing. And I just want to say that I'd like to see MEA differentiate itself. We need to get the energy efficiency money. I totally understand that the folks want to be part of this, but we're going to get lost in this. I mean, it's all about that Energy Upgrade California. That's the whole point of that, is so that individual agencies will not be really noticed. I mean, it's not really going to benefit MEA in a particular way to jump in and spend our money on this right away. I would really caution you to take another look, but I also know that the staff is very excited about it, and I would not want to, say totally ditch it on my say so. I just think that there's things to think about here. Thanks.
Thanks, Barbara. Anyone else on this item? Okay. Yes, sir.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hi, my name is Sam Goldman. I have a question about program design. If you're rebating near the full cost of the whole house audit, isn't that a bit too much? Couldn't you stretch that a little bit further? I think the idea is that you want people who will spend money on their upgrades to opt into this program. Is that correct?
Yes, we do want people who will spend money to participate, who are willing to spend money for their energy efficiency to participate in the program.
So if you rebate like $500 for the whole audit, they're paying very little for what they're getting.
Yes, that is true. We would be giving them a rebate for the audit, so it would just be a further incentive for them to actually pursue the program.
Well, and the rebate would come after they went through the full process to install. It wouldn't be to give them a free audit up front. So they would have to pay for that audit up front, demonstrate that they want to move forward with it, and then ultimately install a rather expensive energy efficiency upgrade product.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for clarifying.
Thank you. Okay, if no one else, then I'll bring it back to the board, and any comments or questions remain?
I'll just make one comment in response to public comment, which is that I think it's worth mentioning that the $500 rebate would not be tied to the audit per se. It would be something that a customer applies for after they've completed the process, and they can apply the $500 where they want to. They might apply it to part of an upgrade that they're doing that's not already covered. They might choose to apply it to some of the permit fees, or they might apply it to the audit. The amount was determined by kind of looking at what the average audit cost would be.
That's right, good. Okay, directors, comments? If not, I'd take a motion. Director Connell?
Yeah, maybe just one back to Don. And this goes to another just aspect of the public comment. I'm viewing this as a very positive first step, but I assume it's will be part of a larger effort toward energy efficiency. Maybe if you can just touch on that or reaffirm that, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to spend some more time on that when we get into our regulatory section, but just a little preview. There's been a lot of activity at the CPUC recently around the energy efficiency funds that go to the investor-owned utilities and how CCAs might be able to apply for those funds. We've been looking at this for a number of years, throughout our business planning and implementation plan process. It's always been something that's been part of the vision of MEA, would be to possibly receive some of that revenue in order to operate local programs that we think are meeting local needs. Fortunately, the CPUC has begun to clarify what the process would be for MEA or any other CCA to go through to acquire some of those funds for customers in our jurisdiction. So we've been participating in that process, and it's possible that there will be some outcome to that process in the near term, and that would allow us to it would really dwarf this type of conversation by a great amount. You know, the revenue that would be coming in to run energy efficiency programs would be a very substantial portion of our budget, and would take some planning. And but I think the upside is we'd be able to provide a lot of exciting programs to the community, leverage the good work that's already being done at the County of Marin, and hopefully add value to that a little bit by launching programs here in Marin County that really serve the local needs. So there's a lot more to come on that. And Beth is going to talk about her interface with the CPUC on that issue.
Director Cromwell?
Question for Dana. PG&E already has some sort of an audit program that they send somebody in your home to do an audit and give you suggestions. Is that part of the Energy Upgrade California, or is it something entirely different?
Actually, PG&E hasn't been doing residential energy audits for a while. They've cut them back. This will be a totally new thing and much more comprehensive than that. It's actually going to be, the audits will be performed by what's called BPI, Building Performance Institute certified contractors who can do full tests on your ducts and make sure they're not, that they're properly sealed. They actually can close off and blow air into the building, find out where the leaks are. Much more comprehensive than anything PG&E ever did.
But PG&E will participate in this Energy Update California program?
PG&E is participating on the rebate side of it. So the BPI certified contractors would do the testing. The homeowner would decide, yes, I do want to implement this plan of action that might result in, it can be anywhere from 15% on up in energy savings. Based on what those energy savings are, PG&E would provide a cash rebate to that homeowner.
Thank you.
And just to tag on to what Dana just mentioned, I think it raises another interesting point, which is that one of the benefits of this program is that there's a third-party certification of the contractors that are going in and doing the audits. So we're able to kind of point to that without having to run our own verification process of which consultants are or which contractors are qualified or not qualified. But the other thing that's a real benefit here is the creation of local jobs. We have folks in Marin County who can apply to be BPI certified. We have some that already are. So everyone that does an audit will be calling on one of these contractors, and that'll be a way to really stimulate local job growth in a small way.
I used my own experience as a case study. I hired a firm called Sustainable Spaces to do an audit of my house. My house was 7 years old, and they did all the cool stuff. They actually have infrared cameras that can see cat prints on your rug 10 minutes after the cats walk through them. They can also see everything else that creates heat. It's pretty intense gear. And they did the blow test. They they sealed off all the windows. It was amazing. They came up with $11,000 worth of improvements they recommended that I do on a house that was 7 years old. Blew my mind. I couldn't afford to do all that, but I did a bunch of them, and my energy cost dropped by 30%. It was amazing. So these things are very, very worthwhile. And Sustainable Spaces is still out there looking for work. So
they're called Recurve.
Yeah, they've changed their name. They're actually Recurve. They're one of the leaders in the group. So.
Yeah, they were Renew back when I hired them, so this is their third incarnation. If you don't believe in past lives, check out the small companies.
But that does provide a great example. It's $11,000 worth of upgrades. Possibly the maximum rebate you could get from PG&E is $4,000. So you're not going to, $500 isn't going to push it over into a freebie.
Right. And for the good of the order, I'll just mention that it's the 8th inning and the Giants are up 1-0.
And Chair, I would like to move this item. I think that it's an important first step for us into energy efficiency. I think that it's an important signal to the county of Marin that we're in the energy efficiency business together, and that there needn't be the fear of competing interests. We're partners in this, and this is a good signal of that.
Gratefully received. Nice comments. Anything else? If not, is there any opposition? Seeing none, that carries. Good, and since Director Marshall is running out of rope on her time, she asked if we could skip number 10, so if you're not completely confused with what I'm doing with the agenda. I want to go on to item number 11, which is the proposed approval of contract with DeLacy Management Consulting LLC for a technical operations support contract with the MEA.
Great. So during this budget year and for several years prior, John DeLacy has been providing MEA with technical support services, including CCA exploration and implementation through a consulting agency, Navigant Consulting, under a contract which expired on September 30th. So during this time frame, the technical support needs of MEA have really transitioned. The past focus was more on research, planning, program development, and implementation. And currently, they've really shifted to ongoing business maintenance and operational support, which requires an increased level of service, a different scope of work, and also a better way to manage costs. And so this necessitates kind of a different model and pricing structure on a going forward basis. We've developed a new contract and scope of work for operational support that's been prepared and included in your packet for review. Mr. DeLacy is currently available to provide services that are in alignment with MEA's needs, and the scope of services would include a number of tasks, and I'm not going to go through all of them now, but I'll highlight a few. Preparing program electricity sales, revenue, and cost forecasts, providing recommendations regarding program rates and develop rate structures consistent with annual budget and cost analyses, preparing long-term and annual integrated resource plans, financial modeling and customer data analysis to support program expansion, rate making, and cash flow management, coordination with MEA's energy supplier and data manager, monthly and quarterly invoice validation for our power supply expenses. This is a really critical task. Regulatory compliance reporting in some areas, California Resource Adequacy or RA compliance reporting, and that brings into play coordination with Shell Energies and any other energy suppliers that we may be working with and needing to provide resource adequacy information on. Monitoring of applicable regulatory proceedings and providing expert witness services for advocacy filings, as he did recently. I wanted to highlight a couple of the key contract provisions just for discussion purposes. The first is that all operational support services would be charged at the rate of $200 an hour with a 3% increase each calendar year. The hours required would vary based on MEA's needs. This is a decrease in the hourly rate that we have been providing previously, and I'll kind of get into that in a moment. But just as far as what MEA's needs are going to be, the average range would fall between 27 and 31 hours a week. Then the next provision I wanted to highlight is the provision for termination. And the termination provision that we've proposed in this contract would be 120 days. That would be the time frame that allowed for either party to terminate the contract. And so typically MEA includes a termination clause with a slightly shorter time frame. And the reason that we were proposing a longer time frame for termination in this contract is really due to the nature of the work, which includes key regulatory compliance activities, routine financial auditing tasks that are really essential to MEA's month-to-month operations. Much of this work is really of a highly specialized nature and technical nature, and it requires really detailed knowledge of MEA's operations. If the consultant chose to terminate the contract, MEA would need sufficient time to go out and look for a replacement and allow for some overlap time to ensure any new consultants could continue without a gap in service. The next provision I wanted to highlight is the term of the contract. The term is set to be 39 months. And this, again, is due to the essential ongoing needs of MEA. And also to demonstrate to potential financial partners that MEA's technical team is fully engaged and committed for a substantial period of time. We've also added a provision that allows either party to terminate the contract upon 15 days prior written notice in the event that the MEA Board of Directors approves the dissolution of MEA or the termination of our CCA program. So that's kind of the way out provision that we've stuck in there. And then I also wanted to mention that the insurance requirements that we have for all other contracts remain in place. as they were previously, and those have been provided for. So given the budget allocation that was originally approved by your board for technical support services, the contract with DeLacy Management would result in a proportionate savings to MEA of approximately $9,000 each month, and would also result in an increase of 33% in dedicated hours of service. So we'd be receiving an increase in the hours of service to MEA. So that's all that I have by way of introduction. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Directors?
Chair.
Director?
This is exciting. It's exciting for items 11 and 12. And I think it's a real coup for MEA to have the opportunity to engage these two gentlemen more. I have to say that I came in to MEA's relationship with Navigant Consulting very weary. And John and Kirby made that go away. I have been highly impressed with the work that they've done. We wouldn't be here without them, and this is a major step for us. I think it takes us to a different level, and I'm real excited about it.
Thank you, Director. Director Cronwell?
Question. Dawn, have we been receiving services from Navigants other than those provided by John and Kirby?
There have been a couple of other members of their team that have assisted on a couple of tasks here and there. So yeah, there are a couple of individuals that have been assisting through some of the implementation and planning, but not on a very large scale.
And going forward, would we still retain Navigants for any services?
Yeah, you know, as I mentioned, it is less the focus of Navigant's business model to provide operations and business like maintenance services. So it's possible that down the road, if we wanted to do some additional planning, that we may look to them. But I believe at this point in MEA's development, it's unlikely that there's going to be a need for any additional technical services, at least in the foreseeable future.
And this hourly rate does not include benefits in addition to?
No, the consultant would be working as an independent contractor and would be responsible for taking care of that on his own.
Director Connell?
Yeah, I would share my colleagues' enthusiasm for having this sort of relationship with John and Kirby. I think they have added a lot of value to MEA. We're focused on John's contract right now. I think the hourly rate seems very reasonable. I guess what I'm wrapping my mind around though is if you extrapolate out what it looks like the overall contract would result in, could be upwards of over $300,000 in a given year. That seems like a large amount. So if you could address that, is there, I assume there is no, a certainty that those number of hours will be spent, et cetera, but that overall number gave me some pause for thought.
Yeah, there are a couple of things that I'd like to say in response to that. The first is that we do have flexibility built into the contract, which is actually quite helpful, something we didn't have as much before, where we can, we might have 1 month where we need a whole lot of hours and another month where we need a lot fewer hours. So we structured the contract actually to have a range throughout the year, so that as we're working on projects, like right now we're about to work on the feed-in tariff, the syndicated solar project, and our RFP, we're likely to need some heavy lifting in the next couple of months, and then things might die down for a while. So there's some flexibility there. But to further address your point, we did look at some market comparisons to see what the cost is of retaining these types of services in the market, and I would agree with your comment that the cost, the hourly rate is very reasonable for the level of service that we've been receiving. And then the last thing I think that speaks to your comment is the provision that was added that allows either party to terminate within a 15-day period. And this is kind of the, I think that if there were concerns about an outstanding, debt being required if MEA were to run into some, significant financial hardship, that would be the way to ensure that that's not the case. So those are a couple of points that sort of address your comment. I'm happy to say more though if you have.
Well, I guess I would kind of be interested in monitoring the hours then accrued, just to keep, the overall expenditure in balance.
Absolutely.
Director Marshall?
And as a tag on, I will also just second and third that this is just a great benefit to MEA, and so congratulations to all of you for putting this together. I also am slightly concerned about just the macro amount. The hourly rate is certainly reasonable for someone of John's skills. So I'm wondering, did you guys consider and/or run numbers on a part-time employee status as opposed to an hourly rate where there's no volume discount for the number of hours? Did you check that out?
Yeah, we did look at that option actually. We looked at kind of what structure that would require, and because the services that we're looking for are really of a highly specialized nature, we're kind of MEA's at a transition point where we're still needing that type of technical expertise that really is more consultant oriented. So, on one hand, the employment scenario wasn't necessarily of interest, but also wasn't really a good fit for the type of service that's being provided. The service that's being offered to us is also being offered to other clients. So it would necessitate kind of a contractor relationship rather than an employee relationship. But I think what you're getting at is kind of, walking the fine line between having a committed and engaged consulting team and having limited commitments. And, we want to kind of walk that fine line. I think that there was some thought given to having the contract term be longer, have it be, as long as 5 years. And then there was some discussion or thought or exploring about making it shorter than 3 years. And I think 3 years seemed to be a good middle ground because it allows us to demonstrate when we go to the market for financing and that sort of thing that we have a solid team. We are able to terminate for no cause with 120 days notice, which would give us an opportunity to get someone else on board or change the approach if necessary. But obviously it's a policy decision that the board will need to make. What's the best way to balance the interests that the board has?
So the only tag on then that I would have is to echo what Director Conley said, which is assuming that we can't put an annual cap on your fees, because I don't believe that's in here, I would like to closely monitor that so that we don't exceed for John's contract, 300,000 I think was the estimated, or maybe it's 325.
There actually is a maximum
There is a
cap
cap,
annually. Yes, there
Okay,
is.
great.
Yes, and what we typically require, of all consultants, is an hourly breakdown with every invoice showing, how time was spent, and so that will be watched very closely. We're happy to update the board as frequently as there's interest on those hourly breakdowns, where we are as far as spending the annual allocation. And so as much information as needed, we're happy to provide, because that is being tracked internally.
Is the cap stated? Where is the cap stated? And what is it? Maybe just tell me.
Well, the cap is stated by the number of hours. There's a maximum number of hours in the contract. So you don't see a dollar amount there, but there's an hourly rate, then the maximum hours are 1,600 hours.
It's in Exhibit B.
Right, okay, I see that here. So
in the first.
So in essence, that's doing the same thing.
Right.
The maximum is 1,600 hours per year, which is an average. The monthly maximum average out is 31 hours per week.
Other questions of Director Conley?
I certainly agree with the comments as to the value of Kirby and John in this organization, what they have done in the past and what they can do in the future. Also, I'm a little concerned about the $300,000. And Dawn, having set that bar, if we in fact do, and in the future we decide to hire a CEO or whatever you want to call them, would we be expected to pay that individual substantially more than $300,000? If we set a bar of $300,000 for a consultant?
Well, it seems to me that it's a different relationship.
Obviously, it is a different relationship, but...
So I don't think that there would be, I don't think that that would be a huge cause for concern. I also think that the, you know, if we were to do a recruitment for a position that has technical expertise, we would be, you know, in that price range or higher anyway. So I think Beth also had a comment.
Yeah, I just have a couple of comments, mostly from a budgetary perspective. Part of the recommendation in the budget is a reduction in technical consultant costs, and this is a significant reduction in those costs, $96,000. And this is an additional safety valve. So when you're looking at costs not to exceed, that is a safety valve. And just noting also that this $300,000 is a fully loaded figure as well. So we're receiving all of the services, and you know, we're not talking pensions and things along those lines. But my only comment is really budgetary one.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good point. I probably should have highlighted that. That you know, obviously we're talking about one contract right now. We'll be talking about the next contract as the next item. But when you combine those two together, we're actually proposing a budget savings of $96,000.
Chair, I was going to save this comment for after public comment, but I'll weigh in now since it's germane to exactly what we're talking about. Another way to look at this is we're basically getting a senior partner from Navigant and another manager level person from Navigant who bring all that expertise and the exposure to other clients for ourselves for about $200,000 per year less than we would otherwise be paying from Navigant. So in a sense, we're getting Navigant's intellectual property and the two guys who now have the state-of-the-art intellectual capability for CCAs anywhere in California, and we have them giving us 30 hours a week for a lot less money. So I kind of came at it from the perspective that I think the way Beth did, that we're going to save this $96,000 reduction is just for the remainder of this fiscal year. On an annualized basis, it would be over $200,000 a year. And that's, in a sense, we're getting Navigant without having to pay Navigant level billing rates. So that seemed like a good deal when I saw this.
That's exactly the point I was going to make. That's exactly how I approached it. Was, wow, look at the money we're saving, and we're getting more than what we were getting before. So yeah, it just screams no-brainer to me.
I also like the fact that they're still consultants. It gives us a little bit of flexibility, and who knows, there may be other firms that they can go do work for that'll cross-pollinate and will bring back some more intellectual property to our benefit. So saving money, getting that kind of experience, and their ability to network out in the industry seems like a good move.
And locking in the cost. You know, knowing what the cost is going to be 3 years out is probably helpful.
We may eventually put balls and chains on these guys and force them to move to Marin from the hot Central Valley, but at the moment the diversity is good. Other questions at this point before I turn to the public? Members of the public, comments on this item? Okay, seeing no one rise, I'll bring it back. And
I would love to make the motion to approve the contract with Gillespie Management Consulting LLC.
There is a second. Any further discussion? Any opposition? Seeing none, that carries. And on that note, congratulations, John. You've earned it, man. Thank you for everything. And as a good omen, the Giants won tonight
Wow.
And we had 14 strikeouts. Not bad.
Go Timmy,
What was the
go.
score?
1-0.
What's it?
Yeah. He's having a good evening. So
I'm sorry. Was it Director Hunley or Cromwell?
Cromwell.
Okay, thank you.
It's the second, not the comment button.
Good, with that, we'll move then to item 12, which is basically the same type of proposal for, let's see, what's it called? Kirby Ducell, DBA Kirby Ducell. Say again?
DBA Paradigm Energy Consulting.
Ah, Paradigm Energy Consulting.
Dude, that's awfully Moran.
Good, so contract proposal with Paradigm. And Dawn, why don't you quickly orient us to this one, but the basic features are the same.
The basic features are the same. There are just a couple of things that are different. The first is that the scope of work includes a different set of tasks that are things that Kirby has been focusing on in recent months and would be continuing to focus on in greater detail. The first is the development of a syndicated solar program similar to the SMOD Solar Shares program. The next is a development or continuing development of our net energy metering programs, enhancing those. Developing our RFP and kind of doing the administration and analysis to support MEA's procurement processes. So a lot of heavy lifting with our contract committee and our technical committee. Project development and resource procurement support, including coordinating with MEA's energy suppliers. Monthly, quarterly, and periodic invoice validation for our power supply expenses. Completion of periodic performance reviews for our power suppliers. Key account management. This has been particularly helpful in the last few weeks in interfacing with some of our large customers and our key customers, helping to do utility bill analysis with customers. Preparation of a semi-annual compliance filing that's required by the California, as part of the California Renewables Portfolio Standard Program. Facility-specific renewable energy projections and performance data. Monitoring the performance of other reporting entities with respect to the RPS program, as we heard about earlier tonight. Management of the Regis information system, which are renewable energy certificate transfers. Ensuring compliance with MEA's internal renewable energy targets and our statutory compliance mandates. Review and validation of the Regis account balances. Developing and helping to implement the feed-in tariff program, which we'll be working on in our technical committee over the next few months. Assisting with MEA marketing activities, particularly around the provision of technical expertise and communicating in good plain language what it is that we're doing. It's been very helpful. The evaluation and development of innovative programs that will complement NCE, and also expert witness services for advocacy filings with the CPUC as needed. Kirby just participated in a filing that went in this week that we'll mention later. All of the operational support provided by Kirby Ducell would be at the rate of $150 an hour with a 3% increase each calendar year. The provision for termination is the same and the contract time is the same. The only other thing I wanted to highlight is that because we will be requiring insurance of both contractors, we'll actually be in a situation where we're doubly insured compared to where we were before with Navigant. The requirement is for each consultant individually. So just thought that was worth mentioning. So given the budget allocation that was approved by our Board for Technical Support Services, the contract with Mr. Ducell will result in a proportionate savings to MEA of approximately $8,000 per month. And as we mentioned, a combined savings with the other contract of $96,000 per year or for the rest of this fiscal year. It'll also result in a 33% increase in the dedicated hours of service for technical support. Are there any questions?
God must have had it.
There you go. That's Sean's babysitting call.
Yeah, right.
Board members, questions? Members of the public? Yes, sir.
Since Dawn took upon herself to mention insurance, I just thought I'd mention my own hobby horse on this. And that is that the Navigant contract had to have entered a provision in which you indemnified them against the consequences of their own professional negligence. That's not in this contract. Hallelujah, big step in the right direction.
Thank you. And hopefully that wasn't something that they just overlooked.
Too late now. Thank you. Anyone else? If not, I'll bring it back and take a motion.
I move that we enter into the contract with Kirby DeSalle for operational support.
Second. No, cede the second to Sean.
Okay.
There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Any opposition? Great, that carries. Thank you. And let's see.
Thank you, and by the way, I just have to say that it's great being under contract with an agency, the board chair of which is following a baseball game during the meeting. That's outstanding.
Thanks to my wingman here who's got a BlackBerry and knows how to use it.
I didn't mention as I was outlining Kirby's list of expertise, but he actually is a pitcher.
Ooh, so 14 Ks. Not bad. Yeah, right on. I also just wanted to say, if you two would convey back to your partners at Navigant our sincere gratitude for all the years of support that the firm gave us. We got awesome support, obviously, from you two guys, but Navigant itself brought good cachet and experience. And I enjoyed working periodically with Patrick. And so anyway, I just want you to convey back our gratitude. And their attitude, given that they also do work for PG&E and Edison and others, they were very tolerant of our nascent effort here as a CCA. And we really appreciate you guys living with us even more tightly too going forward.
Welcome to the Rebel Band.
Yes.